Emmanuel, where are you? Julien Coffinier, Director General, Ravinala Airports, Madagascar. Olivier Barit, Director Aviation Africa, Aegis France. And Mr. George Benchimol Duarte, Chairman and CEO of Aeroporto Segurança Cape Verde. Oops. Discussing a suitable business model will take the ownership and the operation and management of airports into consideration in our discussion. And when you might recall, during the World Airport General Assembly in Marrakesh in October last year, we have done a poll asking the participants what are the biggest challenges you are facing. And you see here the results of the audience in October 2022. Recalling that conference and the CEO and World Business Partner Roundtable we have yesterday had, the challenges airports are facing in a day-to-day operation and management remain. Just to name a few again, it's the political interference, which is humbling us heavily, the volatility of airline performance, the need of modernization, the need for diversifying revenue streams, and the demand for transformation and renewal. This calls for a change of our business model to enable traffic growth and cope with competition. As Ade Funke yesterday mentioned in the CEO roundtable correctly, with the full implementation of SATAM, the traffics will grow heavily, and especially at capital airports. The capital airports somehow have to become the profit centers of the remaining airports in the country in order to connect the regions and drive air connectivity within regions and the continent. Such traffic developments go in line with major infrastructure and development investments which have to be refinanced. The airport environment, in Africa, as we also have seen yesterday, 99% of all airports are government-owned, whereby only 10% have a private partnership. And the government ownerships vary from model to model. I would like to share with you an overview of different government ownership and different business models. Changing government influence does not apply in reverse the same way for the operating model. Let me give you some examples. An African examples would be Zambia. The Zambian airports are a corporation, a corporatization. Airports are state-owned, but they are run as public enterprise, as in an entrepreneurial way. Another international example, when we look to the US, JFK, for example, the airport owner is the government, but each terminal at the airport is concession to an airline, example JFK Delta Terminal 4, or to an airport operator recently, which is Ferrovial in T1. Such diverse ownership or management enables competition within an airlines and gives within airports and gives airlines to choice for the terminal they are choosing. Another example, when we look to the model, when we talk, for example, about a non-profit business model, we can find, for example, in Vancouver, Canada, where the airport is based on an Indian reservoir. The airport is managed by the Vancouver port authority, which is closely cooperating with the reservoir, and profits are fully reinvested in infrastructure for the community development, a typical non-for-profit organization. Another example would be Fraport, who are managing a basket of airports in Greece successfully, which resulted in the upgrades of all airports, large traffic increases, tourism picked up heavily, we have better connectivity between the islands, and in a nutshell, it's a big economic benefit for the country as a whole. The extreme would be London, where the government fully sold its stake in the airports. Looking at the place where we are in Kigali, it is interesting to see in future which business model will be chosen for the new Bugesera airport. Will it be one airport, two airports? Will it be, by whom will it be managed? Even tough, the world has been changing towards the private sector. We see that we see here some examples from our panelists. Asa, excuse me. Oops. Excuse me. Asa, which is has two businesses under its umbrella, 100% responsible for the air navigation service provision over an area of 1.5 million square kilometers. Additionally responsible for the airports so far and the ground handling. This will change soon, since the government will grant a concession to Vinci for a period of 14 years, and I'm looking forward to hear from George on the process the government has taken to concession the airports. Another example would be for the one of Mozambique, where all airports are fully government-owned and managed by the government. As we heard yesterday, and as we know from the aviation media, Mozambique is since long time thinking of finding a suitable new business model, and I'm looking forward to hear Emmanuel on how that is progressing. Ravinala airports will be explained in detail by Julien, where the airport concession is, or the airports are fully managed by Ravinala, which is a joint setup of Vinci and Aéroportuaires de Paris. Meridian, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And Aegis, having airports setups in a number of areas worldwide, where we will hear today about their experiences on the setup in Congo and other parts of Africa. Objectives of African governments and airport operators can be attained by designing new business models. The business model should be the enabler for creating new jobs, for getting finance, for making individual airports parts of an international network, for connecting people and increasing or growing economy. To define the best suitable business model, it's not only to have an alignment on the objectives between the different stakeholders, government, airport, and the different parties in the countries. It's especially important, as we yesterday already discussed, the market assessment. If there is no market, there is no successful airport operation, no successful partnership. So aligning the strategic objectives with the market assessment will tell us how the future business model could look like and what government has to set as a framework to make it a successful business for both in future. Defining the ownership and the business model heavily calls for a definition of how deep should our production look like, how much will we diversify our business. And for this, we have the Porter business model, which helps to define the value along the value chain. It's a useful strategic management tool. It works by breaking an organization's activity into strategically relevant pieces so that you can see a fuller picture of the cost drivers and sources of differentiation and then make the changes happen. Value chain cooperation helps to improve quality, profit margins, and customer satisfaction. There are airports who have complete control over the value chain. When we look, for example, to Doha or Addis, where there is a strong home carrier, where the home carrier benefits and the airport, but it also results in less airlines serving the airport in comparison to other airports. So defining the right business model, the right production depth is key to success for the partners. So now let me go from blank theory to practice by starting the panel. And I would start with Olivier to introduce his model with all pros and cons openly so that everybody can learn from.
Good afternoon, everyone. So Aegis is an engineering company, global engineering company, and airport partner operator in the world. We are currently a partner in 20 airports in the world. In Africa, we have set up a specific company which is called SIGAP, jointly with the South African private equity fund, which is the vehicle through which we have invested and have partnered in Côte d'Ivoire with Aéria since 1996. In Congo, with Airco, 3 airports, Brazzaville, Pointe-Noire, and Olombo since 2011. More recently, we've signed a management contract with the Zanzibar Airport Authority, 10 years contract, end of 2021, and a short-term contract, assistance to management contract in Guinea-Conakry as well. So we have no, to make it short, we have no specific model. Whatever works, we try to answer the needs of, at a given moment, of government, of state, to improve the performance of its airports. So we can bring finance to make more capex at a specific moment. We can bring resources to improve the performance of the operation of the airport, the route development. So yes, we are, I would say, a flexible investment and operating partner in airports, making PPPs deals that are customized for each situation in the world.
Thank you very much. Julian.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. So I'm the CEO of Ravinal Airport, which is the operating 2 major airports in Madagascar: Antananarivo, the capital city of Madagascar, and Nosy Be in the very north of Madagascar, which is some kind of paradise island, competing a little bit with Zanzibar, I guess, with a little bit less of traffic. So Ravinal Airport is quite, I would say, classical concession scheme framed by a young PPP legal framework in Madagascar. Ravinal Airport is the only PPP in 15 years in Madagascar. There were a few PPP back in the 90s, early 2000, but it's really the only PPP, and all the more that it's a 200 million USD PPP. Let me explain the scheme. It's a 28 years concession for the 2 main airports, international airports of Madagascar, representing about 75 to 80% of all Madagascar traffic, out of 56 airports in Madagascar. The model is the following. There is a mandatory CapEx program, which 99% has been achieved over the first 3 years of the concession. There is a fixed concession fee, which we are paying to the state, which is today, I insist on today because we are under renegotiation with the state, today at 3 million euro per year. And this fixed concession fee can be increased only if the shareholders of Ravinal Airports are exceeding a certain level of internal rate of return, IRR. In addition to that, in this 28 years contract, we have visibility on the tariff, since the tariffs are fixed for the next 28 years, excluding inflation, of course. So it's quite usual.
Thank you very much. Let me come over to Emmanuel. Having you as the president of ACI at stage, can you share with us the perspective of ACI Africa on the new business models, on PPPs?
Thank you very much. Hello? Yes. Okay, thank you very much. And once again, good afternoon to everybody. Let me to start expressing the position of ACI Africa by saying that Africa is witnessing from some 10 to 15 years ago, different models being implemented in different airports. Originally, the airports were government-owned, like everywhere in the world. And each government, by its initiative or by a pressure for the companies who are willing to be concessioned airports, they've been starting to concessioning airports. Okay, that is a way. Some others, like the example which Catherine gave, like Zambia, they've transformed their own company, which was full government-owned, into a kind of private-oriented organizations that, but 100% owned by government. This is another group of company, like the company in Mozambique. It's in the same position like Zambia and some others. And there is another movement happening, like in Ethiopia, whereby the airport joined the airline and they are together, managing together, and that was not initiated only in Ethiopia. We know that some other countries, there is a holding company who manages both airline, handling, and airport. So those are kind of models. And all of them, we believe that they are looking for efficiency, okay, on their business, okay? They're efficient on their business. Why? The information we can gather from the studies and also the reports, it says because there is a huge pressure for new investments in airports. There is a need of improving the safety. There is a need of improving security. There is a need of improving environment and efficiency of operation of the airport. The governments are not capable in some cases, in some countries, to invest in such. But in other countries, it's not just because the government are not capable, but the government are not allowed in their relationship with the international organization like World Bank and the International Monetary Fund to invest as a with the public funds in airports, okay? Because they are promoting the idea, and which is probably right, because in other continents it is prevailing, that the airports are business. So as business, government should not invest money on it. Why don't you privatize? Why don't you concession? Because there will be someone else coming with the money to invest. So in terms of position of ACI Africa, I will not give you a clear answer. We can't position that we prefer one or other model. What we want is our members to be efficient, whatever privatized or government-owned, to be efficient, to invest and make sure that they are putting enough resources, human and financial, to achieve a certain level of safety. That's why we have, we normally per year, we give something or recognitions to the ones who achieve very good level of safety, very good level of security. We give just to incentive because those are the parameters where we can influence, okay? And because many other airports are not managing to achieve good level of safety, security, and environment, we as ACI Africa, we developed an African Airport Development Program where we subsidize training, we do technical assistance to the airports who have less resources in order for them also to improve their level of security, safety, and efficiency on the operation. So the position of ACI Africa is that no one left behind, everyone must have opportunity, or either by intervention or by their own government or by help from the ACI Africa. They have to improve safety, security, and other parameters important for us to have a more attractive airports in Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. This brings me to George. Would you like to share with us the process ASA and the government have taken to concession the airports?
Well, good afternoon. I hope everybody is awake. I'd like to thank ACI Africa for giving us the opportunity to not only to share our experience, but also to learn what is being done in the continent and all over the world. If you allow me, I know Cabo Verde Islands usually does not appear in the map, so allow me to tell you where it is. It's in the Atlantic Ocean, not far from Senegal, and we consist of 10 islands. We have airport infrastructure on 7 islands. Islands are very peculiar, have very particular reality. You need hospital in every island. You need an airport on every island. You need schools, universities. So it's very demanding, and I think island countries, African island countries, deserve a special attention. Actually, African Union is now designing special programs for small island states, and Cape Verde is included. So what is our situation? Cabo Verde Islands have a company, a state-owned company, which manages the airports and manages also the air navigation. We manage the flight information region in the Atlantic Ocean, which is close to 1.3 million square kilometers, which is a very big responsibility for us. And of course, it gives the government and state very good conditions to having airports under the same umbrella also to help financially the airports. We have 4 international airports and 3 aerodromes. The aerodromes are basically for domestic flights. The 4 international airports we have, 2 can issue flights to United States, and of course, all of them can issue flights to European countries, and connectivity is the issue. Of course, Cape Verde's economy is based on tourism. It's a country with a GDP per capita of close to $4,000 US dollars, but of course, COVID has caused great damage in our economy, but it's getting back, so tourism is now almost at the same level as 2019. The same for the passenger traffic, especially the international passenger traffic. We are approaching the levels of 2019, but still in the domestic passenger traffic, we are still far away, something like 40% below 2019. So the situation is that the government has decided to involve the private sector in the airport management and operations. So what has happened and what we've done? First of all, it's necessary for a country to have a strategy. That's relevant when you are trying to choose a partner. But make sure you have the legal framework established. Don't, please try to avoid the loose ends. We created general law approved by the Parliament, and we also approved basis for concession where the government established the conditions and requirements for an international operator to become an operator in Cabo Verde. So those requirements were quite demanding, and we decided to put on the law what are the requirements, the basic requirements. There was a period for expression of interest with the submission of a non-binding offer, and then the government chose what it found as a suitable non-binding offer, asking the operator, the international operator, to submit a binding proposal, a complete binding proposal. So the concession agreement then can be negotiated once the selection is done. What are the preconditions? Make sure we have a strong regulator, autonomous, independent, and competent, because that's crucial. You will deal with experts. You will deal with companies and organizations. We are focused in managing airports. And we have to admit that they know the business better than we do. Try to have good advisors, legal firms with reputation, with experience, transaction advisors to advise you on the economic and financial and the procedures for the process. And then prepare whatever you need to take the decision. And the decision was taken by the government, and in Cape Verde we have to highlight the government runs the country. The government is the executive power. The president does not interfere in the daily business of the country, but it has a veto power on almost all issues. So to award the concession to an international operator, the government approved the decree law to award the concession, but it has to be signed by the president. And I can tell you that we are talking about different parties. Democracy in Cape Verde works, and we have the government with one party, and the president used to belong to another party, and there is a consensus. And that's very important to have a consensus politically so you can implement a very big decision like this. But it's crucial also to have the country strategy aligned with the strategy of the operator. So the operator has to cope with what is the main strategy for the country. And those were the ingredients under which the process has been concluded. We signed an agreement, a concession agreement, in July, which consists of what? The main components. What the government gets by involving a private partner. In this case, Vinci Airports. So the concession agreement establishes that we need to have an upfront fee for the concession award. And then there will be annual concession fee, which is growing along the years as we go. It starts with a low percentage, it grows along the 40 years of the concession. And, of course, the most important thing, in my opinion, the investment plan for the concession period. But, of course, you cannot make a projection for 40 years. So you have what is considered immediate investment in CapEx, and then you have a forecast for the period. But what is important here is to establish that periodically you have to review the investment plan, to adjust it to the reality, to the traffic growth, and to the country, to serve the country's economy. That's essential. But also the agreement establishes the whole airport system, how it should work, with KPIs very clearly established, with the minimum technical requirements, economic regulation, which is it's crucial because of the airport charges in the future, how it works, how you change the charges, the tariffs. And what we decide to do is that there is a formula to change the airport charges, but it has to be controlled by the regulator. And same thing with the technical requirements, security, safety, ESG issues, so environment, social, and governance. The governance model is also important. But in the law, we also established, as a very important aspect, labor. No one is to be fired. So the concessionaire, the new concessionaire, has to take all the employees which activity are related to airports, and has to guarantee that their rights will be preserved. So basically, as I say, there is no ideal formula. We still are in the process of finalizing the concession agreement to make it effective. And this is crucial also to have this transition period. So we are now almost at the end of the transition period, which will tell us the transition has gone through correctly with everything in place, a lot of conditions precedent to be fulfilled. And the future will tell us that, will tell us or not, the formula we've chose is correct and is correct or not. So basically, this is what I'd like to share. It's our experience, and we will be here, of course, to assess in the coming years how good we are and how well we chose, how good is the partner we chose and how well is the process.
Thank you very much, George, for sharing this, I would say, as a consultant, best-in-class model and process you took as government to issue the concession, to make a concession for your airports. I would like to come back to Emmanuel quickly, because I was asking you before for the ACI Africa perspective, but you had somehow like a double-headed position, having been for 9 years the director and chairman of the Mozambican airports. What do you think, what is the way forward for Mozambique in regards to the privatization in the future?
Yes, Catherine, thank you very much. Mozambique started some time back, crucially in, we started processes before which failed to continue. I remember in 2026, we had to stop a process of negotiation with a South African player. I will not tell the name. It was a really very advanced negotiation already at the contract level to concession Maputo International Airport in 2006. Why? We had elections in 2005, and a new president came in, even though being from same party, and he was not convinced that we should go for privatization. So they find a way to negotiate very friendly with the concessionaire who won the tender and stop the negotiation and finish. That was a very first trial of the process of concession in Mozambique. But at that time, the motivation was there was international pressure initiated by ICAO on the need of improvement of airport infrastructures worldwide and with a focus in Africa, where there was identified several airports with a lack of good infrastructure. Because most of the airports were built in the early 60s, 50s, and 60s, and there was no adjustment to the new SARPs of ICAO, reason why there was a pressure by the ICAO toward such implementation of privatization as a way to have enough funds to do the improvements. But because the model of concession at that time was not seen to be the best, you all understood what happened, and from 2008-9, where massively the Chinese was invited to come and give money, to give loans, okay, because it was not being possible with the partners, our partners from other continents. China was the country who came with the money. So Mozambique has improved the airports. Maputo International Airport using funds from China, and we built Greenfield Airport in Nacala with the funds from Brazil, and we also get some loan. We also got some loans to improve some tourist airports located in tourist zones like Vilanculos, like Pemba. So we did almost a 500 million investment on an improvement of infrastructure. Has a way to show that by doing this, we can move without concession. But in 2014, We had elections, and there was a change of president after 2 terms. And now the issue of privatization come again, because now it was becoming a fashion to privatize airports. I'm giving the story to show, to remind people, and also to recognize what happened in almost all countries. Because these processes are not just spontaneous initiative by governments. Normally, a meeting somewhere in this world, it is put in the table that you must privatize the airport as solution. So it's where some governments move on privatization, some resist, okay? And this is the way how. And Mozambique was not exception. So at that time, we were invited as airport company of Mozambique to come up with a proposition of how to restructure the company to be more profitable, okay, to be more profitable. So we came with several alternatives, and privatization was one, okay? Why? Because we were pressured. All the investment were done with the funds which were not contracted completely by the government, but the loan was for the company. It's a small company with the revenues around $30 million US, including airport and air navigation. And we had to get a loan of 500 million. There is no financial business, and business model can make it profitable, no way, okay? It was supposed to be the government to take part of the loan, but unfortunately that was not the case. The airport company had to inherit that loan by the decision of the government, and we had to come up with a model. That's why we started trying to restructure or to bring models which could help the airport company to reduce the obligations of debt service. And so in order to release the airport company from the obligation of paying back the loans of 500 million US dollars, we managed to get the government has to take part of the loan, and we wanted to the Nacala Airport to be concessioned the loan, but it was Greenfield Airport and had no traffic to justify the model for concession. So, no, it was a mixture of possible models.
Emmanuel,
Yes.
so can I summarize that the financial burden is big because it's on the airport's books?
Yes.
Most likely the revenues you're earning with the airports will not even cover the interest rates.
No.
But Mozambique, to my knowledge, has a big need for connectivity, for having airports developing because of the gas and oil exploration in the north.
Yeah.
So, am I assuming right? There is a partner required, a concessioning required, a form of concession to help developing the airports and to somehow see how to diverse revenue streams to be able to repay the loans.
No, really, what I was to finish on my explanation was Mozambique is quite convinced to concession airports. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's quite convinced. We are still discussing the model to how to concession, whether it is to open chairs, to bring a strategic partner, or to give 100% management contract. Okay, and we are still discussing that. We have already 2 companies interested. Okay, one of them is in this panel. I will not tell the name. And they are welcomed by the government, and they are following what is happening toward getting to the concession. So who's willing to join concession in Mozambique? You are all welcome to approach Mozambique and the Mozambican government, and in the next 4 or 5 years, the concession will be completed, because
Hopefully.
this is the direction.
Hopefully with the right process in place. Thank you, Emmanuel.
Thank you.
In view of the timing, as I said, we would like to keep the timeline. Let me have some last questions to the panelists. Julianne, if you would be in a position to change something in the setup of the business model and the framework you are working in, what would that be?
I will answer the question, but first I would like to react to Emmanuel's point. I agree, it would be extremely pretentious to say that concession is the solution. I totally agree on that, and only a long time will confirm that or not. However, I'm convinced that there is a trade-off to make for each state, how they want to prioritize the use of their own budget. And if we look at Madagascar case, very poor country, there is major issues with health infrastructure, with education, with roads in general. The question is, thanks to the investment in 200 million USD made by private investors and bilateral lenders with no recourse to the state, then this is an equivalent of 5% of the Madagascar debt that was not spent by the state, or 1 year of public deficit. So I think it's quite important. This is a trade-off at the end. To reply to your questions about what could we change, what could we have changed, I think we have a wonderful example with Cape Verde, which I think thanks to the 25 or 30 years of historical concession around the world, your state made, I think, something very mature. It's very impressive. So based on that, if we consider that you are a very good example of balanced concession, I would say that from my perspective as, let's say, as CEO, I'm not including my shareholders on that, we need more alignment with the grantor. And in order to get more alignment with the grantor, I think a viable component of your concession fee is key. And to grow together so that the, let's say, increasing profits you can make at the airport can be reasonably shared and partially shared with the state so that we can align. The second point is that it's also a point of alignment, and Mrs. Pumi this morning told us about that. Thanks to make the recovery of our airport successful, we need to have more partnership with stakeholders. And in many concessions, nothing very clear or detailed is written enough about how to build on a daily basis your partnership with the state and the regulator. So we need KPI. We need to avoid being too distant from each other, just that the state that, okay, I give you the keys for the next 28 years and then, okay, pays dividends when you can. No, we need KPI. We need to help the state to measure the performance of the private operators. This is absolutely key. And we need the state to help us to embody this partnership by creating, I don't know, maybe some committees with all stakeholders so we can discuss, align our position, and grow together. And the last improvement, but it's based on a country-by-country basis, is a regulatory framework. You mentioned it, Georges. We need in each country to make a successful concession or PPP, we need a strong regulatory framework. It's not only a question of PPP legal framework, it's also a question of tariff regulatory scheme. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellent summary. But I would also like to hear Olivier's opinion as Aegis.
You start talking.
Yes, thank you. What could have we done differently from what we did? I think to complete what Julien was saying, and I'm very aligned with what you said, there are two things. Communication first. So, you know, we are still with the idea that of this privatization that consists in handing over to a private sector, a private partner, which, by the way, is a foreigner sometimes. So there is this feeling that at a very moment there is a transfer for 20, 25 years, 30 years of the asset. So this is not the case. It's a partnership, like a marriage. So you're with your wife, your husband, every day. You have plans, you have change in your life. So we talked about the investment plan. Okay, we have an investment plan for the next 20 years, but something might happen. In Abidjan, when Air France decided to operate the A380, we had to invest 3.5 million euros all of a sudden for 4 years operation of A330. So it diverted our investment plan to something else. So that's airport life, and we live it as a partners. So the other element which is very important is at the moment when you transitioning, usually or too often, it's presented as a situation where we come from a past world where things were not done properly or without enough performance from financial aspect or operation, to a newcomer that will bring all solutions. And okay, you have a new partner which is eager to deliver, who is committed on performance, measured on performance. And the feeling on the government end can be that we will lose. So the civil servants who will stay, who won't move to the new operator, usually they all move, or most of them move. There is no one left aside and left behind. Can have the feeling that they've lost their role, so they failed. It's not a failure; it's a new project, a PPP, where the oversight body, the supervisory body, is as important as the operator itself. So that's my, I would lay my take to this end conclusion is that speaking about what really is a partnership, a public-private partnership, is important, because there are some ideas that, okay, we are a greedy private investor. No, that's totally something else. We marry for years, and we have to make it a success.
When I summarize, thank you very much for the valuable insights you all gave from different perspectives, from government side, from operator side, and from ACI side. Summarizing it, I understood a trustful cooperation, a partnership between governments and investors is key to sustainably grow traffic, grow the business in both partners' interests to meet social, economic, financial, and legal objectives. There is no one-fits-all solution. There are suitable setups that attract investment, provided the business model has been based on joint objectives and solid market assessment, meaning there is sufficient demand and potential for growth. You need a proper PPP legal framework in place. Otherwise, if you have unregulated countries, there is no real partnership possible. And as a form, like a new form on concession agreement, in a way that it considers tax and levies exemptions, airport fees to be jointly defined by government and concessionaires, find solutions, because both benefit from. A contract flexible to adapt to the times of crisis. We have seen that was necessary after what COVID have taught us. And the structure of the payments, the upfront payments and the fees are decisive for the success also of the setup. I would like to thank you.
Thank you.
With one last question for George, by asking what is crucial for setting up such, or what are the success factors for setting up such environment you have shown with ASA?
The highlight two key aspects. I think the first one, nothing is guaranteed in this world, but at least we have to try to attract partners who can bring something, not only investment capacity, private operator is not going to invest if there is no return. So traffic growth is key. And airport operators, international airport operators, leaders in the world, they have this capacity to bring more traffic. And traffic is key because that is what will give us profitability. And we need it in Africa. You can have nice airports, you can have fantastic airlines, but you need other things, political will to do things. Just an example, and I would recommend you to read what is Africa Visa Openness Index. You will be surprised. We have countries totally closed. Totally. No country, no citizen of any other country can enter that country without a visa, for example. We have it. It's published, so try to find it. It's an interesting index for us. The second aspect of the concession process, we should make sure that there is in place, I highlighted the regulator, strong, independent. We can really control what is essential. But at the same time, at the government level, in our case, we established an independent commission to manage, to monitor the implementation of the concession agreement throughout the concession period. This is essential because, as I said, you are leading with professionals with a lot of know-how, with financial power, and we need on our side people with capacity, competent people, objective, which can give you the insights you need to have a good result. At the end, the objective is common good to our people, and I think all governments should work with partners that can help them to achieve this common good and the well-being of our citizens.
1 second. Emmanuel, we are running out of time.
Okay,
Would you give it a second?
I just want to use 1 second to tell you, all our members, if you want to initiate a process of PPP, if you don't have idea where to start from, if you want to start a model of management to solve the problems, at least to overcome problems which you are encountering to make the company profitable, there is no better door to knock beside SEI Africa. Independently, and as we are working for you, we can sit down and work. We can arrange, talk with the experts and bring together and do good studies for you to have in mind, we have in hand when you have to talk with the government about the solution. So please knock the door of Ali or Ramesh if you are intended to have a technical assistance toward concession of airport or otherwise to study model, business model to resolve the current problems we are facing in terms of attracting traffic and so on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the panel.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much. This brings us to the end of the session. Let's please call upon the photographers to do a photo session before we proceed. As the photo session continues, let's try to buy some time. We have 2 more sessions before we wrap up the day and a few announcements before everyone leaves the room. I need to have this well put. So we have an exciting evening packed with lots of food, lots of entertainment, lots of networking, which is the gala dinner tonight at 7 p.m. at Inare Conference Center. Dress code is, of course, smart casual or any traditional attire that you remember to pack, please. And then just another quick reminder is that we will have buses to shuttle every delegate back to their hotel exactly after all the sessions. So we're looking at around 5 p.m. And then the buses will pick you from your hotels at 6:30, heading to Inare Conference Center. And then also for delegates staying at KCC, Radisson, the buses will also leave at 6:30, heading to the